These are so heavy. Hello fellow book nerds, this is Gabby and today we're going to be doing the September wrap-up. Yay! So September's been a really good month. I think I read 9 books, which good for me. We're on the roll these past couple months. I've been doing great. A lot of them were really good reads and I'm really happy with them, so let's chat. So the first book I finished was Into the Drowning Deep. This book follows a story of an entertainment company which specializes in mockumentaries, and they set out a crew of filmmakers and scientists to explore different supernatural occurrences. So they did Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, all of that, and one of their next project is to send a crew of scientists and entertainers to try and find mermaids. The ship gets found a couple weeks later with no crew inside and some really disturbing footage of some killer mermaids. And this story follows another crew who is sent to find out what happened to the first ship. So this has killer mermaids. When I say killer, I mean killer mermaids, like they're predator, apex predators, and they're not your Little Mermaid singing at rock monuments kind of mermaids. I enjoyed this book quite a lot. I think it had a very strong beginning. It's considered horror, but for me, be more thriller. It wasn't that scary, but it was quite suspenseful. I think it built the atmosphere very well and really made you feel like you're on a ship in the middle of the ocean and no help is coming, and it was very suspenseful in that way. I really enjoyed all the scientific bits because there was a lot of scientific explanation of what the mermaids look like, what they would be like as a species, how it's different, how it's the same. Like, I don't know all this stuff, but I think it was explained very well and I thought that part was extremely interesting. So there was a lot of representation. There was deaf characters, there was homosexual characters, and there was autistic characters, and I just thought that was really well portrayed. And I thought the format was really cool. It kind of felt like mixed media in the sense that we would have an article or someone's opinion piece spread out throughout and then we would have a normal chapter. So it really felt like I was reading a log of a captain or something. Like, it really felt like I was following the story and like discovering it in interesting ways. So I really enjoyed that. Onto some things I did enjoy. I didn't think it had strong enough ending. So over the first half of the book, it's pretty slow, I would say. It's really like atmosphere building and we find out so much stuff. Like, there's just so much information and I feel like that was great. I liked the information, but maybe sometimes there was a bit too much because it was interesting, but at the same time I don't need to know that well. But it felt like that was at the first half of the book, and then at last like 40%, 30%, everything just sped through so much, and we go from this like slow building like atmosphere to like blah 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 blah, and this happens, and we get absolutely no explanation anymore and none of the scientific stuff. And I think this is the reason for this, is which I didn't know, but this is a series. I think it's a series, so maybe this is left to explore in the other books, but nevertheless I felt like the ending was really rushed. And another thing I thought was like executed so was that it was set in the near future, but I felt like some things, the leaps they took were really grand, but some things didn't change at all. And I felt like even the technology they had didn't change much, but some other things changed really dramatically. So that was interesting, but maybe I think could have been a bit more consistent because it didn't feel like future, but it was the future. But it's like really near future, like a year or two. But then how did we make so many leaps? You know, it's just really weird in that sense. And I thought that could be done a little bit better, but my main gripe was the ending, which was just really rushed, and it made me enjoy the beginning of the book less because I didn't think it was that much of a payoff for like the very slow beginning. The next book I read was Shatter Me by Tahara Mafi. If you're not aware, me and some other booktube friends are doing a read-along for the Shatter Me series in anticipation of the newest release, the last book in the series. So I've already read this before, and this was just a reread. I've only read the first trilogy trilogy, and this first book was always my least favorite. I remember reading it for the first time when I was younger in Polish and just really not enjoying it. It reads really easily, so I did push through and read the other books and absolutely loved those. I mean, maybe the second one I didn't love. I just loved the third one, I remember. But yeah, this one's always my least favorite. I think it has really interesting writing style, and I heard some people, even from our group, have a bit of an issue because it's a lot of really chopped sentences and really improper grammar, and a lot of things are crossed out. But that is done on purpose to reflect our main character's state of mind. So what this book is about, it follows Juliet, who has this affliction, I would say, and anytime she touches someone, they die, or maybe not die, but they get really injured, and she kind of sucks out their energy, or kind of like Rogue from X-Men. So that's the vibe she's getting, and she's in a mental institution, and one day she gets a cellmate. I feel like the pacing of this book isn't great. It just felt so quick, and from what I remembered, I was so surprised because I thought certain events took place way later than it actually did. Like, we get so little time to like sit and actually get to know our characters and actually understand. It's just a lot of things happening, and even the love story, to me, I didn't really buy it. I don't like the main love interest, but that's been a thing. I hated him since I read the first book for the first time, and my feelings will not have changed. Oh, I never noticed it had a little eagle on the thing. That's really cool. Like, these are gorgeous, so I just really wanted to own it. But I like this series, but my first book isn't my favorite. But so if you feel similar, I would really push through because they do improve. Next book I read was The Chalkman by C.J. Tudor. This book kind of follows in two timelines. So a group of boys gets chalk for one of their birthday, and they start kind of having their own secret code, drawing the chalk drawings all over town, and one day they kind of start appearing of their own, and this is a murder mystery. It was alright. I did enjoy it overall, but it was very slow, and it felt like nothing was happening for like 90% of the book. Nothing really happened. Even though things were happening, it's just I didn't feel very excited about them. I feel like this book really should have some content warnings, because I picked it up and I was reading it, and there was some one scene that portrayed sexual abuse, and it was kind of out of nowhere. Like, I was not prepared for it, and it just came and like slapped me in the face. One, it was a bit unnecessary to describe it in so much detail. Two, I just didn't expect it, so I felt like literally slapped with the content. Like, I just had to put it down. So, content warning for sexual abuse. And on that topic, there was something like traumatic happened to one of the characters, and I feel like it was not handled well. We never see the repercussions to the character's psyche and their thinking change. It was not a bad book. The ending was interesting. Oh, that's what I wrote in my notes, but I already can't remember the ending, so how interesting could it have been? The next book is School of Good and Evil. So this book follows two girls. One of them is beautiful, has blonde hair, wears pink dresses, and is considered like the epicenter of goodness. One is called a witch because she has short black hair, dresses all in black, and is generally moody. And in this world there are two schools. One is for good and one is for evil, where you either train to be a princess or prince, or you train to be a villain of the story. At the beginning of the book, the beautiful and pure characters get sorted to the school of evil, and the moody, ugly character gets sorted to the school of good. So I heard Jessie the Reader talk about this book, and I thought it was really interesting. The concept I found really fascinating. I feel like the exploration of like what it truly means to be good or evil, that could be done so well. It is a middle grade, so it is meant for children, but I found it really simplistic in a way. It eventually resolved itself. To me, this book was just really strange because the characters are 12, but the way they're spoken about is like as if they were teenagers. So it made me really uncomfortable to be reading the author describe princesses wearing short skirts so their legs are out. 12-year-old boy has his shirt open, he's so like attractive. I don't think the descriptions were sexual in nature, but nevertheless, when you think about how young these characters are, it was quite uncomfortable, and I just don't think it made sense. The School for Good is really filled of really prideful people that are only focused on looks, and that's kind of how it's like, yeah, that's what good is. Just like the priorities of these children was like getting together and getting a prince, because if you don't get a prince for a ball, you get expelled, and if you get expelled, it's kind of implied you die. I think the way the characters spoke wasn't very realistic for 12-year-olds, and when you consider that it's for children, I didn't feel like there was any morals in it really, because when you think about it too much, it all falls apart. And I felt the first half was alright. I enjoyed the first half, but second half was really rushed. Everything happened so fast and I was so confused, and at the end I was just like praying I'd be finished. Finally, I listened to God's Grave by Jay Kristoff on an audiobook. So I'm a huge fan of Nevernight. This was different than I expected, I must say. It was kind of like a gladiator spectacle. I think I enjoyed Nevernight a bit more because I like spending time with characters and I like exploring their relationships, and we did have that in this book, but we did get a lot of new characters as well, which I really liked. I thought it was a really good book. I 100% really enjoyed it, and it was so suspenseful as always. Jay Kristoff writes action very well, and there's a lot of action scenes. The next book I read was The Kingdom by Jess Rottenberg. If you've seen Westworld, this is very similar. In this future society, there's a amusement park where scientists created these hybrid creatures that look and act just like humans, and they're the princesses in the park, and this park is kind of like Disneyland. We follow the main character Anna, who is the hybrid between a human and an android, and she's a princess. I really enjoyed the first half of the book, maybe more than a half. So our main character Anna is an android, and there's a murder and she's accused of it, and that's where we're at. Chapters are located in the past and we learn the story, and then there's interim chapters where we see the trial she's on right now and we see her interviews after she committed the crime. It had interesting aspects to it, I'd say. Like, the interviews really reminded me of Dolores talking to Dr. Ford in Westworld, which I love Westworld, but I haven't seen past the first season. So that really reminded me of that, like the kind of foreboding and like how intelligent is this creature actually, and how much feeling and what's wrong and what's right. The chapters in the past I found a little bit boring. I didn't care as much because I didn't like the main character that much, and I feel like there was so little development on she has 7 sisters. 4 out of them, I could not like tell you their name. I could not tell you how they look. I could not tell you what they do, what they like, what they don't like. Could not tell you their personality. There were only 3 sisters, I'd say, that they were kind of developed, and we don't know that much about them either. In this world, we're told that species are extinct, seas are like super polluted, there's poverty, people are kind of fighting the streets, and everything's hopeless but this one place. And I think there was an interesting space to kind of explore that more, which was not explored at all. I thought it was a standalone, and I read it, and at the end I was like, well, there's so much left there. I feel really unsatisfied, so it must be a series. And then I checked Goodreads and there was nothing about another book coming. Down to Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by J.K. Rowling. Love it. I am doing my reread, 1 Harry Potter book per month. I've always said this one or Goblet of Fire were my favorite, and 90% of the time I said Prisoner of Azkaban, and I really enjoyed it. Like, once I finished, I was so tempted to pick up Goblet of Fire, and I really had to stop myself, be like, no, you said 1 a month, 1 a month. Then I read Series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket. So this book follows a story of orphans who are left in the care of Count Olaf, who is not a great person. I've seen the TV show. I've only seen the first season, but I really enjoyed it, and I've seen the movie, so I know the story of the first couple books. This was very easy to read. I really enjoyed it. I know it's a children's book and it has like enormous font, but sometimes you just want something nice and easy. Lastly, I read a graphic novel called Through the Woods. So it's a compilation of short stories that are like really creepy and kind of disturbing by Emily Carroll. So if you look at the artwork, it's pretty. So I thought the artwork's really cool. The stories are really creepy, but there's not really much about them. Each story is maybe 5-6 pages, so they're creepy. Did I get any anything out of them? Not really, because as soon as the story started, it finished as well. Nice art, but I can't really handle the gore, and there wasn't much to them, but they were interesting. Alright everyone, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you read in September, and if you read any of these books, what you think about them. I feel like I read a lot and they were not as amazing in last month, but definitely there were some gems in it. Harry Potter. And please like, subscribe, comment. I would really appreciate that, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!